is
It is now 7 a.m. and we make way for the Morning Watch with Mr. Stokeley Marshall. This is the Morning Watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Lord of mercy. And what is them catch we know? Jesus. Jesus. Why are you so calm?
You're calling for Jesus. It's a peace that I found in him. There's a peace in my soul, and I'm with you.
Making lemonade, making lemonade. There's more to the story too. Only God can bring we through. When we're making lemonade, making lemonade.
Season 3 coming soon.
Making lemonade.
Man and man, it's the month of love, February, and Valentine's Day is a day of love. Women would receive their roses and chocolates and all the nice gifts and affection. But should men receive gifts for Valentine's Day too? Well, join yours truly, Courtney Morrison and Kevin Bailey this Wednesday, February 15 at 5:30 p.m. for the Valentine's edition of the Mailbox with a panel of guests as they discuss gifts given for Valentine. Listener man, it's going to be an interesting discussion you don't want to miss right here inside the Mailbox this Wednesday, February 15 at 5:30 p.m. with Courtney Morrison and Kevin Bailey right here on the family station Love 101, celebrating 30 years of music, family, and love. The Mailbox is sponsored by Fosridge Company Limited, your electrical, lighting, and solar people. Monday.
And he knows my name.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today, 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. It's the Telephone Counseling and Prayer Ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. A reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
When I come to the end of myself, Father, carry me.
Hey, small people, Listen up. Join us weekdays, Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. for the Small People Show with Auntie Colleen. Yes, every day we have something educational and fun for you to enjoy. Plus, on a fifth Friday, you get a chance to hail up your friends and community, order something to eat, and you could win a prize too. That's the Small People Show, where we aim to build characters and empower our small people for the future. Remember to tell a friend and stay for the fun. It's the Small People Show with Auntie Colleen on the family station, Love 101.
Miss B, how you doing?
Oh, hi there, Lizzie. We're good, you know. How the app going?
Why, Miss B, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I have been enjoying the app from them time there, but I tried to get a friend of mine to download the app, and she says she can't find it.
Oh, Lord, Lizzie, it look like the Love app missing from the Google Play Store, you know. And the one them have on there is the same name, but it's not the real Love FM app.
True. It's a different color app me see when my friend show me. So how the new people with Android are go find Love now? What me to tell my friend?
Well, I hear Love FM, the real Love FM, is working on getting that sorted out. But until then, anybody with an Android can still listen Love 101 on the website www.love101.org. You know, having the real genuine Love 101 FM app with the red logo has a lot of advantage, because if you miss a program, you can simply rewind and listen back. And enough more things on the genuine, authentic Love 101 FM app with the red logo.
Boy, me hope them fix it soon. And like you who have your Apple phone, enough people have Android.
Me know. So let's tell everybody so them know what tracker strike.
If you already have the Love FM app on your Android device, you may still use it. However, for our listeners who are wanting to download the app on your Android device, simply listen via our website at love101.org.
Persons downloading on Apple devices will find the Love 101 FM app. Thank you for making it Love 101, the family station.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. And I am your standby host for this morning, Jukal Dyer. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or you can join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the App Store. You can also check us out on Love 101 FM, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. In the main watch today, Jamaica still high on corruption perception index. And in the second watch, we have values and attitudes in advertising, or social media question we ask on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. How would you rate Jamaica's response to corruption? Share your responses rather on our Facebook and YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on in the program, but here we go with our I quote for today. It says here, if life were predictable, it would cease to be life and be without flavor. And this I quote is by Eleanor Roosevelt. So again, if life were predictable, it would cease to be life and be without flavor. This is by Eleanor Roosevelt. Here online this morning, we're going to be talking about, Jamaica and, the response to corruption. So in the first watch, Jamaica in 2022 is the fourth most corrupt state in the Caribbean. That's according to the Corruption Perception Index, CPI. Disturbingly, nearly 3 years later, the proposed statute that should help the change or that should help to change that ranking is yet to be laid in Gordon House. What's with the delay? Today we're going to be speaking with Daniel Archer, who is from the NIA board. She's a board member at the NIA and director, also an attorney at law. Good morning, Daniel. How are you?
Good morning, Jacob. I'm fine, thanks. It's good to be on Love this morning, but let me juke you up early.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to say that we are the most corrupt in the Caribbean. We have to have a little bit of hope.
That is right.
We are better than Trinidad, Suriname, Guyana, and Haiti.
Yes. All right. Thank you. That is good enough to have a correction be done. So thank you for that. So we are not the
I'm putting it into context, because you kind of, when you say we're the most corrupt, my heart kind of dropped. I'm like, Jesus, my things bad.
Oh, Jesus.
But we kind of bad, because we have remained in the same position for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. I get you.
So we haven't showed any improvement.
I get
you. And what we're talking about this morning, Jacob, is NIA is one of the branches of what is known as Transparency International. And Transparency International is a global body that seeks to combat corruption in the public sector. So they do, one of their flagship projects is what is called the Corruption Perception Index, which I assume is why you invited us to share with you this morning.
Definitely. And that is my first question today, Ms. Archer. So let us know, what is the CPI and how does it work?
All right. So the CPI, the Corruption Perception Index, is the flagship project of Transparency International, which is a non-governmental organization seeking to combat corruption around the world in over 100 countries. So they have chapters in Jamaica, they have chapters in Trinidad, they have chapters in Guyana, and 90 other countries. The Corruption Perception Index now, as a research project, seeks to look at a global indicator of public sector corruption. So it essentially offers a snapshot of what is the degree of corruption by ranking countries and territories from around the globe. Essentially, how corrupt is the government or the public sector right across the globe?
Right.
And so out of the 100 and odd countries, they seek to rank the countries by, and the aim, of course, is to get over 50. So if you're on the perception, it's over 100 countries.
Yes.
The aim is to get over 50. And so each year, they release the data to indicate where we are.
And that is how it is ranked, correct?
Correct. Correct.
I get you.
So your aim is to try and get over 50. So if you're above 50, you're doing fairly well. And as you rise above that, you're doing better. If you are below 50, you are regarded as among the more or most corrupt countries in the world.
I see.
And each year, Jamaica has scored, let's put it this way.
Yes, break it down for us.
We have scored, our scores are derived from about 6 different agencies that we talk about, the IMF, etc. And when you think about our score, we are at 44. So we are below 50. As Prof likes to say, we're treading water, we're marking time. We were ranked number 70 some time ago. We're now at 44. We were at 44 for, what do you call it now, 10 years?
Right.
So where we are, essentially, is we have, and so when you look at the ranking, you see our score is 44, but you see the ranking that says 69.
Right. So it's not in a good place for about 10 years, you say.
Correct.
Right.
And the only reason that we're at 69 is because somebody fell. It's not because our score improved.
Right.
So last year we were at 70. Not last year. We're at 70 now. So when you look at the numbers now, you're saying to yourself, 69 countries are doing better than we are. And of course, 44 in terms of our perception or score is below the pass mark.
Right. All right. Well, could you let us know, why is the CPI credible then?
Well, let's start from the perception. You always want to go to an entity that is non-governmental. They have no interest at all in the countries. What they're seeking to do is to gauge corruption globally, and they use a multiple prong approach. So they use multilateral agencies. So you have projects like the World Justice Project, you have the IMF rankings. They do these assessments throughout the country. So they use multiple media to determine what people feel in each country is corruption. And they get their views and then they tabulate them, and they're able to juxtapose them to what is really happening in the countries and what the perception is, because that's why it's called a perception index. So this is how things are perceived.
Right.
But when you actually look at the perception index, you can actually recognize that in the countries that are ranked low and the countries that are not ranked low, that there is in fact some kind of poor governance structures occurring. So if you really want to look at the numbers, I pointed out to you when I came on air that there's Suriname, Guyana, and Haiti. You want a better example? So let us go into Haiti and look at what the corruption struggles are.
I mean, we can see it. It's
exactly.
I mean, it's evident.
So if they're at the bottom, you can actually see that it is not a lie to say that corruption is rife in Haiti.
Right.
So you can test the index by actually looking at the countries that they have. So you can go online to Transparency International and you can see what the index is. You can see how the countries are structured.
Right.
You can get an in-depth appreciation for the structure that they use. But let's be reasonable. Our reality seems to coincide with what the perception is.
Yes. Thank you.
And we do have issues here in Jamaica which indicate that our public sector is not where we want it to
be. I totally understand what you're saying. Let's take a quick break just to acknowledge the time signal, and then when we come back, we have some more to unpack here in this topic, of the CPI. So just hold tight for a second, listeners. We'll take a break and then we come back inside the Morning Watch.
The Heart Foundation of Jamaica is asking us, let's get unhealthy foods and beverages out of our schools. The time by the Heart Foundation of Jamaica is
7:15 and a half.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
At MOJ Ministry of Justice, come access quality service to keep order within the nation. We facilitate good relation, legal help in your pocket. A little is child diversion for you to need expertise. Victim service, we help you cope with grief. Restorative justice, build back the peace. No matter where you come from, how we say justice for all Jamaicans. MOJ Ministry of Justice, come access quality service.
MOJ, taking justice to the people of Jamaica.
Colgate Triple Action. 3 benefits for a deep clean. As a mother, you always want to give the best to your family and to make them happy. With Colgate Triple Action, you give them 3 reasons to smile. Cavity protection, whiter teeth, and fresh breath. A unique formula with a minty flavor they will love. Colgate Triple Action.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. In the first watch, we're talking about the CPI, the Corruption Perception Index, and in the main watch, we're discussing the Jamaica still being high on the CPI, which is the Corruption Perception Index. Online with me, I have Miss Danielle Archer, the NIA board member and a director, also attorney at law. Miss Archer, still here?
You can say Danielle, or Mr. Upon my birth certificate.
Oh, true, Danielle. All right, no problem. Let me just no problem.
I belong to my father. The only thing I own is Danielle.
Okay, so I'll call you Danielle then. Fine, no problem. All right, Danielle. So, could you let me know what accounts for our ranking?
Right. So you want to look over time on the things that we have done that would have allowed us to improve, so that we could give the perception that we are working to combat corruption. And if you look at 2022, you can ask, have we done anything that has allowed our score to improve or not? In reality, there has not been much traction in terms of legislation or action that would cure the perception that we are acting towards eradicating corruption assiduously. So whilst we had last year a great turnout in terms of persons agitating and really pulling out the stops in terms of the civil society groups and the public clamoring for reactions to how there have been mismanagement or corruption in terms of what has been done to say that the government is doing something, they have laid the groundwork and are combating corruption. There wasn't much action.
Right.
And because of that, we didn't really move because we never do nothing. If you never do nothing, you can't move.
You can't move, right.
And that is the challenge. So you want to be able to do action, to be action. Instead of action, not a bag of mouth. You do things
Action
that
time.
people feel
Right.
that we are serious about combating corruption. One of the things, though, the NIA feels was really instrumental in making sure that we never drop was the fact that MOCA was finally independent and became almost like Jamaica's FBI. That's the ranking, that's the illusion that we've been getting. So that has also given us a little impetus because where we are is a recognition then that we're doing more to make the JCF and our investigations more independent. So we're putting greater focus now on organized crime, and we get to look at MOCA now as our chief corruption agency. That anti-corruption agency that is going to be front and center in combating corruption. And you will appreciate that a lot of us have felt that from time immemorial, not much is being done to combat white-collar crime. So MOCA and the independent nature of MOCA now, separate and apart from the JCF, not only strengthens the capacity of the JCF by the work that they are able to do, but they are now being independent and being like our own FBI, forces us to now recognize that we have our anti-corruption agency that is independent, so that when we even have allegations that the JCF is too close to a particular matter, we know we have an entity that is independent. And that secured our position, so we never drop. I think the other thing NIA feels was also instrumental was the Public Bodies Management Accountability Act. That too, having been passed, allowed many years of work in terms of public bodies accountability to actually become ingrained in a document that now demands a greater accountability from our public bodies. So I think those two areas, along with this expert work, the superb work of many of our investigative journalists over the past year, did in fact give the impression that even though we didn't accomplish great things, we were still showing some kind of interest in combating corruption.
I see. Well, I mean, I feel like you are breaking this down in a way that I know that myself and the listeners are understanding exactly what you're getting at. So what I also wanted to touch on is why haven't we made the changes and set the solutions in motion? Because I know you talk about action time. So why is it that we haven't made those changes as yet?
It becomes difficult. You have to draw several players together, and you would realize by now that our desires and our aspirations and our dreams and our goals sometimes take a lot of work, a lot of expectation and initiative from many parties that are involved. So let's take, for instance, the gag clause. NIA feels that one of the things that would help us to move up in terms of our corruption ranking or corruption perception ranking really would be the removal of the gag clause. Then you would have to ask, why is it that Parliament doesn't want to remove the gag clause? Because they feel that the reputations of parliamentarians are important and the reputations of politicians are important. And so we don't want an investigation agency, which is the Integrity Commission, to voice that there's an investigation going on because this information might damage the reputation of our politicians and parliamentarians. So we have a gag clause. So we know nothing. We don't know whether or not politicians are being investigated or what allegations are against politicians that are being investigated by the Integrity Commission. That kind of secrecy affects the ability to trust public officers, and that kind of secrecy affects our perception of corruption. Are they hiding something? And on both sides of the aisle, you will have persons who say, yeah, well, let's support it because we're protecting the politician. We're protecting the reputation. On one hand, people will say a reputation, as you know, is extremely valuable and once damage can't be repaired. And so they want to protect it because in the past, allegations have been made that have been unfounded against politicians. And so there has to be some kind of protection. That affects how we perceive corruption, and that is why there is no traction. because it serves the interest of some of our persons that we don't do the things that are required because it protects the interest of a few. That answers the question on one hand.
Definitely.
And on the other, let's look at the unexplained wealth orders, which we think, if in fact is passed, will actually pave the way for us to increase our ranking next year. Because what it says is that we are now making headway into looking at how it is that people earn a living. How can you live a particular lifestyle and you don't have a recognized income? So having an unexplained wealth order, if they actually do intend to pass it, then that would also improve our perception. Why it hasn't passed, it has a lot to do with how people perceive what is necessary to make it pass. There are some who feel there have to be a constitutional amendment, and there are others who feel, no, you don't need a constitutional amendment. This is something that is bread and butter. It's ingrained. It is part of our criminal justice system and should be passed. So this highlights that there have been varying degrees of understanding or expectations from our political directorate or business directorate as to what is required and why is it required. And until we get a consensus between all parties that this is important and this has to be done and we're all at the table and it's all for our purpose, then unless there is that kind of agreement, you're not going to get certain actions being able to be performed.
I see. Could you also let us know a bit of challenges, that are being faced, or challenges that are, that you foresee happening?
You mean in terms of being able,
in terms of moving the rank?
Ranking?
Yes.
Well, what you've just discussed, what we've just shared is a challenge. The challenge of being able to quickly pass and implement legislation. I think if we look at what's happening, though, with even the rollout of the Road Traffic Act and even the rollout of the Firearms Act, what is clear is that there needs to be a greater public education program when we have this kind of legislation. And if we don't have it, then people don't know. And if people don't know, they can't make good use of the legislation. So I think one of the challenges that we're going to have is, how do you educate the public as to the existence of laws that are in place that can help us to combat corruption? For instance, the Whistleblowers Act. We have the Whistleblowers Act, which has given great strength to the Integrity Commission and, of course, to the JCF and to the Auditor General, where a person actually call in and give information. One of the things that I think is a challenge to the effectiveness of the Whistleblowers Act is that it doesn't have any incentive. It needs to be strengthened. It needs to give people a greater reason to come forward. So that's a challenge. If we want to be able to effectively enforce legislation, we want to be able to ensure that there's proper incentives and protection for people when they're going to be sharing information. So those are three challenges, I think, that we would have to face. And ultimately, I think our initial or basic or our greatest challenge is, how do we get out the 61% of Jamaicans who believe that they want to be part of the process? How do we convert those 61% Jamaicans who say we want to fight corruption, getting them into a process that they actually stand up, let their voices be heard, and they become more integral then in combating corruption in Jamaica? For me, personally, I do believe that Professor Monroe and the team at NIA would agree that it is being able to get out that 61 and improve on that 61. So we move from 61 to all at 75% of Jamaicans where we're in a stand for corruption. How do we get that done is the challenge. How do we get it done to have people recognize that paying the liquor man at the tax office or at the depot is corruption? How do we get to understand that the little things that we're doing in our offices where we're thief paper, we're thief pen is corruption? How do we change the mindset that people understand that when in Jamaica we say no problem because we can get it done, that's a problem? Changing our culture and our way of thinking, I think, is also a challenge. And that is going to take a deliberate effort on our part to make Jamaica the place to live and work. Ideally, is ultimately the challenge that we face. So it's not just a legislative challenge,
right?
It's a cultural change, and it's also a personal change as to how we go about doing our work here in Jamaica.
So it's a personal mindset. Then you have to do, so there's a lot of changes that need to happen in order for this to move, or rank for it to move.
Right. So it's not. We don't want. I don't want us to leave here thinking that this moving up on the perception index is just about our politicians. Our politicians answer to us. So it becomes a personal mindset and a personal responsibility where Jamaicans actually decide now, say, look here, I feel we place this. Excuse my parlance, but I understand that there are persons who don't like when we break away into the vernacular. But this is the only way to explain it. When we take it and make it a personal thing, and personal responsibility in Jamaica seems to be one of the areas that we have the greatest deficit.
And good morning, listeners, and good morning, Daniel Archer, and of course, Drickel. Daniel Archer, Stokeley Marshall speaking. How are you doing?
Well, I know it was you just called it Daniel Archer in one line. Good morning.
And in terms of people taking it personally, I do see where there's more whistleblowing in Jamaica now.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Which is what I had alluded to when I made the point that because of the whistleblower legislation, you've had a number of reports to the Auditor General and to other entities. Yes. What you want to do now is to strengthen it so that people feel that they're greater protected, and to also offer incentives so that more people are encouraged to participate in this by feeling more secure.
And so we need to remove the inform of the dead culture.
We remove that by changing our culture.
Okay.
And that was what I was alluding to earlier.
I think we're just about out of time. I think we're just about out of time. I'll hand back to Drickel.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking about the CPI, the Corruption Perception Index. It was a great talk with you, and I definitely believe that you broke it down for us today. So thank you so much, all right?
No problem. Have a great one.
All right, you too. Have a great one. We take a break, and then we come back inside the Morning Watch.
Small Business Loans. Tell us your business and let's turn your ambitions into reality. The time by JN Bank Small Business Loans is
7:30 and 45 seconds.
Hi there.
Honey, you made his dreams come true.
Thanks for the computer, sis. It's cool. I hope it will keep your brain fit.
Inspire them to build a better tomorrow. Send money for education with MoneyGram and fulfilling their dreams. Look out for the MoneyGram sign or visit MoneyGram.com. MoneyGram, bringing you closer. Available at Alliance Financial Services, JN Money Transfer, Alaska Money, and VM-based money transfer services. MoneyGram and Bring You Closer are marks of MoneyGram. All of the marks are the property of their respective owners.
Your taxes hold.
Let's get digital this tax season. File and pay your final income tax return for 2022 and estimated return for 2023 due on March 15 with tax support in so many ways. Start connecting with us through our web hub at jamaicatax.gov.jm, Customer Care Center 888 Tax Help, or Special Taxpayer Assistance Program. Tutorials available online. All income tax returns, including individual, must be filed online and on time by March 15. Tax Administration Jamaica. Changing the way we do business.
Sunday was made for reggae. Love.
February is Reggae Month, and Love 101 is joining the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association, JAREA, with the celebration of sweet Jamaican gospel music on Sundays. All music Jamaican. Yup, folks, it's Reggae Sundays for the month of February as we celebrate our Jamaican gospel artists. Salute them, the man. Come clap your hands to the various sounds of Jamaican gospel music. It's Reggae Sundays, all music Jamaican, every Sunday in the month of February. Reggae Sundays is on the family station, Love 101.
To sing it, gospel reggae, to worship Him and speak.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are in fact saying and doing. And we look firstly at Loop Jamaica News. Another warning for public sector workers yet to reach wage agreement. No room for upcoming budgets for salary increases due this year, says Clark. We turn now to the Jamaica Observer. The headline here, court backlog reduced. The criminal case backlog rate in parish courts has been reduced to below 2%, the government has announced. And we go to the Gleaner and a story of some concern here indeed. Man attacked near Harmony Park in St. James dies. Those and many other stories in our various news sources, of course, coming on Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, how would you rate Jamaica's response to corruption? If you haven't done so yet, leave a comment on our Facebook or YouTube. Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
Hey, small people, listen up. Join us weekdays, Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. for the Small People Show with Auntie Colleen. Yes, every day we have something educational and fun for you to enjoy. Plus, on a fifth Friday, you get a chance to hail up your friends and community, order something to eat, and you could win a prize too. That's the Small People Show, where we aim to build characters and empower our small people for the future. Remember to tell a friend and stay for the fun. It's the Small People Show with Auntie Colleen on the family station Love 101.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. It's the telephone counseling and prayer ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. A reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
When I come to the end of myself, Father, carry me.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Before we take a look at what our listeners said in response to the feedback question, my deep apologies for coming onto the program at the time that I did today. I was having some technological challenges, and the challenges were not resolved until way past 7, almost 7:30. I do apologize to the listeners, to all of you listeners for that. And I thank Jukal for steering that ship so well for the most of the, well, practically all of the first half of
You're most welcome. You're most welcome, sir.
I was listening and I was saying, well, this is wonderful, great. Amen, 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 Jukal. Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem.
Yes. Well, Jukal, what are our responses, if any, to the feedback question on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst? How would you rate Jamaica's response to corruption?
All right, so I do have a lot of responses today, so let's see how much I can get in, let's try. So Merlin from Clarendon says, I would say 9.5. Little Renee says 10, really bad. And she said it's when the thing happened, they react. Marcia Graham says 10. Edna from Montego Bay says, okay, it's a voice note. Let's see. Let's play a little bit of this one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jukol Dai.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
All right.
Miss Archer. Jukol, for me, on the scale of corruption in my country, Jamaica, I think I will give it, out of the scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 9.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll reach a 10, but I'm giving it a 9. Because too bad for me put it.
All right, that was Edna from Montego Bay. We have Joan Dawkins saying, "Love Jamaica, but corruption is at its best. My rate is 10." So that is just a few that we have on here. WhatsApp.
Jukal, those comments are stunning.
They are
It
truly
says a
happening.
lot about how we think about ourselves as a country. We clearly are of the view that we are very corrupt.
Yes.
Let us see how we can start to change that, at least from now here in 2023.
Yes.
Well, we move right into the second watch, changing gears a bit here. Well, advertisements were, well, they arguably are among our first influencers. And when I say first influencers, what we mean is they can make you desire a product or an item. They can convince you that you have a need that you didn't even know you had. They can cause you to take action to find ways to solve problems. They can cause you to feel a desire while helping companies to reach their financial objectives and increase their revenue, such as increasing their revenue. But how do they guide or influence our social norms? I think of, for example, mobile phones. Someone invented the mobile phone, but then, or some persons did, but at the end of the day, it took advertising to get persons to become more familiar with the product. And now it's almost as if you don't have your mobile phone with you, it's as if something is, you feel a little bit out of place oftentimes. So how do advertisements guide us? Should they, meaning advertisements, how should they impact us as a country, as a society? Do they make us a stronger society? Can they make us a weaker society? Well, we have as our guests for this segment, Patria K. Charles. She's a marketing and communications manager of Massey Distributors, and Kingsley Morris, Chief Executive Officer of Marketing Plus and President of the Advertising Agencies Association of Jamaica. Good morning.
Morning, Stokeley. Morning, Kingsley. Glad to be with you.
Morning, Kingsley Morris.
Good morning to you both.
Great having you both. Now, quickly, because of limited time, how do ads work? I'm going to put that one to you first, Mr. Morris. How do ads work?
Well, advertising, let me just say that, Stokeley, first of all, I want to congratulate you guys on 30 years. I think you have contributed a lot to Jamaican society and its values and attitude. I would like to just add to that advertising has been a key shaper of society over the years. Ads, you gave actually quite a good summary of how it impacts people and how it works. Advertising has evolved tremendously. We used to say that it was paid non-personal communication, but in modern, it is far more than that, because it doesn't even have to be paid. With the advent of the smartphone, the advertising community is now able to reach you through paid ads, which you would recognize from standard media, which is what your station offers, television stations offer, newspapers offer. And it is now able to get into a zone where you actually can own the person who is giving you a brand promise, can own their own advertising. And that is in the form of a website, where they're able to not just disseminate information about their products, but they're able to track who is looking on their products and who has an affinity to the product. Then it gets better, because as the affinity grows, you get the evangelists, people who will actually, it's not paid in any way, but they will stand up for your product and your brand in a very strong way.
They call them raving fans.
raving fans.
I know some of the terms, yes.
Yeah, you'll find them competing. And one of them that has dominated in the last 15 years is Apple, who were treated as the small boys before that. But no, they're when somebody gets into a certain ecosystem, Apple doesn't even have to advertise it in the way that they did. They used to spend 7% of their revenue advertising. Now they're doing a lot of revenue, and they're closer to 1% now.
Oh, so they don't need to spend more than 1% in advertising because the raving fans do the rest.
The raving fans do the rest. Market have grown tremendously. So
hold that thought 1 second, Kingsley Morris, because I want to bring in Patria K. Charles. Now, Patria K. Charles, we are accustomed to seeing you in another space, but we're seeing it this morning. We're now seeing it this morning in your capacity with your company. You concur with Kingsley Morris in terms of
100%. 100% I do. One of the things that I want to add as we consider this whole idea of ethics and advertising, a lot of what we depend on now to stay connected with the world and to get our information is free, right? You don't pay for your email, you don't pay for Facebook, you don't pay for Twitter, you don't pay for Google, you don't pay for Instagram or TikTok. And as marketers, one of the things that we're very clear about is that if you are not paying for a product, you are the product. And so this platform that we have access to and we depend on for free, all of these marketing companies recognize that they are able to make money by selling to you on these free platforms. And a lot of these
One
you can't
moment,
avoid.
You have a lot to say, but we are at a time signal. Hold the thought. Listeners, stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Paying taxes? Use your Sagicor Bank business credit card and get a 1 month payment holiday. Conditions apply. The time by Sagicor Bank is
7:45 and 40 seconds.
They're full of life. You're full of love. They're carefree. You care more. That's why we created Child Protector, a critical illness insurance plan from Sagicor Life. It provides coverage for your child in the event of 15 critical illnesses, hospitalization benefits, life insurance, and investment benefits. So make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for Sagicor Child Protector today.
Calling all high schoolers and tertiary students. Passion and Purity in association with ICF presents Love Week 2023. Themed Passion, Purity, Purpose, and Love. February 13 to February 19, 2023.
Features include Love Challenge, Devotions and Girls Conference, Reigniting the Love, hosted by Merrill Grove High School, Saturday, February 18, 2023, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with special guest speakers, dance, drama, fashion show, and gospel concert. Admission free!
Blue Ribbon rice means consistent quality. It's sodium-free, cholesterol-free, and fat-free. Add the consistent quality of Blue Ribbon rice to your meal today. Distributed by T. Geddes Grant Distributors Limited.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and we are looking at values and attitudes in advertising. Our guests are Patria K. Charles, and Kingsley Morris. Patria K. Charles, just before the break, you were unpacking a lot of things. Please continue.
Sure. So just reminding folks that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And so marketers recognize...
That sounds so cold, but at the same time, is it a reality?
It is. So when you use Facebook, when you use Twitter, when you use Google, when you use your email, who pays for that platform? Not a dollar comes out of your pocket to be able to access your friends and family.
It's the same thing with the radio then.
It is the same thing with the radio. It's very customary that you're going to hear a broadcaster say, I'm going to cut the commercials because I've got to pay the bills. There's a transparency with some presenters now.
And the television too, and the TV.
And all of it. If you don't pay for the product, you are the product. It's a platform where people recognize that they can reach you.
TV. Yes, go ahead.
And the owners of the platform recognize that they sell to advertisers to be able to reach you. And it's come down to a science now. So as the product, the consuming product, people like platforms like Facebook know exactly who you are, what you like to watch, what you eat, what you tweet about, what you write about, what you search for on the internet. And with a lot of the platforms being connected and owned by the same entity, there is this continuance of, she searched for this over on this platform, so I'm going to advertise to her about that thing that she searched for on a totally different platform that I own. So it requires that those who own the platforms, those who legislate, and also those who place ads, there's a deep level of ethics, first and foremost, that they must have, because of the power that the advertiser and the platform holders, that power that they yield right now is unprecedented.
Well, as you go there, Patria K. Charles, a number of things come up right away.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the instilling of better values and attitudes. Is that part of the objective of the advertiser, or you're just there to make money? Because a customer might say, I would like to run a particular ad, which might appear to offend certain sensibilities or certain values from a Christian perspective or some other perspective. Do you run the ad? Patria K., your thoughts?
It gets a little tricky, right? Especially since a lot of these platforms we in Jamaica don't own, and or levels of values and morality are not the same as perhaps in some of the other countries. And so you dance this dance between policing ethics, policing free speech, versus wanting to build an ethical, moral society. It's a very fine dance, especially in other places in the world. And what we might consider, immoral or unethical here in Jamaica and other countries of the world, they just consider it free speech and expressing themselves. And so legislation for the extremes, legislation actually gets in the way and says, okay, wait, this is too far, this is going too far. But beyond that, one of the things that we have to recognize is, as much as people on these platforms are the product, they also mandate what they see and what they don't see. And it's a very vocal community that's able to say, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see this kind of content. So the platforms do allow for people to report what they see as being anything from harmful to somebody, harmful to their life, or something that's offensive that they don't want to see. That kind of power is also in the hands of the consuming consumer. But it's a fine line, right, between allowing the platform to make the revenue that it wants to make and allowing the consumer to have that say. It gets tricky when you're talking about business and advertising.
Very interesting. And what about some simple values such as just having good manners or being polite, kind, and helpful? Kingsley, Morris?
Well, we operate with generally with what is called let's come to Jamaica. There is a Jamaican code of ethics for advertising, which establishes certain basic things. A lot of people don't even realize some of the code of how we practice standards. But from that perspective, we always try to make the brand promise be a virtuous brand promise, so that we're not offending anybody. And in doing so, I would give a simple example. In doing so, if we're doing a commercial of even a lady entering a door, the person who is designing the ad and who is doing the creative is going to ensure that it is done in a more pleasant way. These things are going to prevail because the ad is produced in this way, so that the brand walks away with a positive cognitive response at all times. But there are basic things when we talk about ethics that I want people to understand. Some people don't even realize that when we're advertising alcohol, very strong alcohol, you would never see anybody drinking it. Those things are written and etched in our code of ethics. If you notice, you will see the ads and you will see people having it in their hand, but they're not drinking it. All right.
Interesting.
And people don't realize that these are standards that we have to uphold.
Yes.
The children, we don't advertise that same alcohol is not advertised before a certain time of night. All right. So we have very good watchdogs that help to lift the standard. right? We have over 30 statutes that hold the whole thing together. We have people like the Fair Trading Commission. We have people like Jamaica Consumer Protection. Well, there's a Jamaica Consumer Protection Act. I'm thinking about betting, gaming, and lotteries. So even when
Broadcasting Commission.
I was going there as my key person because the Broadcasting Commission regulates both advertising and media, and they're so dynamic in what they do that they're now focusing on the attitudes of children, trying to keep them away from nefarious exposure. They're trying to ensure that kids are making choices. If you notice how their ads are set up. So they're trying to help the values and attitudes of our young ones. Help them to understand what is important. If you see things that are bad, stay away from it. And discourage peers.
Understood.
So reach there that the Broadcast Commission, I think they're doing an excellent job, if I may say so, at shaping Jamaica's values and attitudes. But
I want to make a quick shift though, Kingsley Morris and Patricia K. Charles, in terms of advertising in our current environment in light of the level of technology that is available. For example, someone might be having a casual conversation with you in a living room or anywhere, and your phones are on the side are on the side table, and when the conversation is finished, maybe 5 to 10 minutes later, you see an advertisement popping up on your phone in relation to something that you discussed in that conversation, and you're wondering, how did they know that they could send you this advertisement at this particular time? Maybe you're discussing having a vacation somewhere,
and you know,
resort, and 5 to 10 minutes later, there's an ad about the same resort on your phone.
So the convergence is one of those things. The ownership convergence is one of those things that we have to talk about, right? How many of those platforms are owned by the same people? And so the conversation is one thing. The search on one platform pops up with an ad on another. But
we're talking about having a
I understand what you're saying.
A verbal conversation.
Totally understand. Yes. For you to say, Alexa, do X and Y, or okay, Google, X and Y, it means that Google must always be listening to you for that prompt. It means Alexa must always be listening to everything you say to be able to pick up that prompt. So, and I mean, there have been lots of declarations from the entities.
Stick up in, Patricia K. Charles, help us here. Does it mean that in many cases our phones are listening to our every verbal conversation, whether we speak or not?
How is it going to filter between Patria and Google if it's not listening?
Okay, let's bring in Kingsley Morris. Kingsley Morris.
Yeah,
that sounds very chilling.
Yeah, let me make that very clear to you. You know, a lot of us don't recognize that when we sign up for these things, there are some privacy things that come up. You know, when you just go on an app.
When we click accept and we don't know what we're accepting.
Exactly. Most of them are over 2,500 words. All right. And that's a proven thing. That has been researched, and it takes over 5 minutes to read. The average person does not read it. They have clicked permissions to do things that you don't even recognize.
You know, that is why when I speak to some of my clients, I don't take the phone into the room. I have told my clients, I say, be careful of that phone. So how does that impact or affect the values and the attitudes in terms of having these devices that are perpetually listening to us, it would appear? Patricia K. Charles?
Boy, I'm not sure. It requires a lot on the part of the advertiser, yes? And it's also going to require a whole lot on the part of legislators to be au fait with the details in what people are signing up to. We're seeing a lot of changes. Certainly, I would say maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, we saw a lot of changes in the United Kingdoms around permissions, around the default being the minimal permissions that an app would need to run to be able to not be intrusive. And people have to opt in to the intrusion. So there's some countries that are caught up and are protecting their people a lot more than others. So the kinds of permissions that would be forced in the United Kingdom are not the same in the USA, and certainly not here in Jamaica. And so legislatures have to be on top of the technology, and people have to use their voices as well and say, oi, I'm not comfortable with you being into my life like this, and somebody needs to protect me, even if I can't protect myself.
If I may add to that, the UK it protects their citizens even when they're outside of the UK. That's how powerful their data protection act is in general. And Jamaica in 2017 started our data protection act, and we have gone a pretty far way with that. But the point overall is that the world is evolving so quickly, and the power of these machines that we're using now, there's a lot of deep learning, and the same legislation has to try and keep the thing together, because there's a new thing out there, which we understand with AI. It's called
very quickly.
And there is Chat GPT.
That's another conversation. Kingsley Morris, Patriarchy, Aaron. Sorry, Charles. Patriarchy, Charles.
Will forgive you.
My apologies. I want to thank you both for being guests this morning on the Morning Watch. And I again apologize to the listeners for my being late this morning because of the technological challenges. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts. And of course, listeners, thank you for being with us again. Of course, continue to tune into us for topical and controversial issues. And of course, visit our Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page. And of course, stay connected to us, our Love 101 FM programs. And download our app. And remember that we are the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing back to Love in the Morning with Jacal.
Over 100 murders in 1 month, Jamaica. We can't continue like